Continuing on, this next speaker apparently, well, not apparently, he lives and breathes coffee in his work, studied, and traveled his way through the coffee supply chain. So it's going to be quite interesting. He's recently opened the Common Man Coffee Roasters. Please give a big round of applause for Mr. Andrew Kent.
Hello.
Hey.
Let's clap. Celebration. Ow! All right, guys. Thank you so much for your help, guys. Thank you. So let's start it off with a few questions. So I'm going to ask you guys a few questions and just show me a raise of hands if they apply to you at all. So right off the bat, I want to know how many baristas are possibly in the crowd today. Any baristas in the crowd today? All right, I saw a few of those back there. Nice. Good, good. And how many cafe owners are in the crowd today? A few cafe owners. Great. So for you baristas and cafe owners, how many times has a coffee been sent back to you because it was sour? So it looks like quite a few. Yeah, we've all kind of experienced this before, which is good. So I thought this would be a good idea to focus my presentation today, because we are the proponents for specialty coffee, which means we have the opportunity to share our passion and engage with the consumer on a subject, coffee, that we all have a true passion for, but just don't have the information yet to recognize what they're tasting. So this is where I believe, as a stewards of specialty coffee, we can make an impactful difference. Hey, that's me. So as you guys can see, for many of you that don't know me, my name is Andrew Kent, and as this lovely gentleman just introduced me, I've been traveling over the last 10 years in the name of coffee. I've worked, I've studied, and I've traveled around the globe. My journey started me off in Seattle, but has led me across the US, down to Central America, about a year in Africa, to Australia, and then finally to Singapore to open up Common Man Coffee Roasters. This journey, I've been very fortunate through this journey to be able to experiment, or to be able to see the ins and outs of the specialty coffee industry, and also to look up close into the trends of emerging markets. So let's create a little bit of context, and I'll just talk about myself. So as you see here, this is Erna Knudsen, excuse me. The name specialty coffee was first coined in the US by this woman, Erna Knudsen, about 40 years ago. So it's easy to imagine at this point, the US market has gone through a lot of trial and error to get where they are today. Here in Malaysia, we are right at the beginning of it all, and at the forefront to shape the market how we want. So as we can learn, so what can we learn from other markets that have already spearheaded the specialty coffee and perhaps could fast track where we would like to be today? This is probably a pretty familiar image that we've all seen before. This is the basis of coffee in Southeast Asia today. This is a traditional dark roast of Robusta or Liberica varietals that's often roasted with margarine, lard, butter, sometimes sugar to cut down on the unwanted bitterness and to potentially increase the richness and the quality in the cup. This brew method here, as we all know, is brewed with a filter or a sock-like filter. Essentially, this is a manual filter brew method, which is currently trending globally over the last 5 years. So this, again, this is where the masses are at in terms of flavor profiles. However, we're seeing a natural progression of coffee in Southeast Asia. We're seeing more and more of this. Hip cafes, great food, latte art, filter brewing methods, such as Aeropress, Chemex, V60s, and even quality engineered espresso equipment that's specifically tailored to specialty coffee. So this is a big leap for the majority of consumers from what the majority of consumers know and love. And obviously, specialty players such as Starbucks, Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, Costa, have all helped open the doors for our scene to enter. But even as their massive influence, we still are working with palates that are accustomed to darkly roasted, low-quality coffee. We still have a ways to go. And surprisingly or not, this very same circumstance has happened in other markets. I'm going to use my home country as an example, the US. So when specialty industry started in the 1970s in the US, guys, this was the norm. Again, Robusta or low-quality Arabica coffee, oftentimes overdeveloped in the roasting process to hide any unwanted flavor characteristics or defects. In terms of quality, it is fair to say this coffee, at that point in time, compares with this. So what I'm saying is that the States have been right here as well in terms of flavor quality. Other markets have been here as well. As you know firsthand, changing this perception of quality is a massive challenge. So why is that? Why is changing the perception of quality for coffee so difficult? For those of you who don't know, I'm missing a slide there. Okay. We'll pretend there's a slide right before this one that shows SCAA Symposium. Use your imagination here. Coffee helps with that. For those of you who don't know, every year the Specialty Coffee Association of America holds an annual symposium with industry leaders from around the globe that come together to talk about the shared knowledge of the coffee. And that's very similar to what we're doing here today. Last year at this event, I listened to an impactful presentation by Tracy Ging, who is one of the SCAA board members. She had a pretty amazing presentation that focused on people's emotional attachments to coffee from the ages of 18 to 45. Her presentation pulled together an SCAA study of random consumers into focus groups to discuss their mutual passion for coffee. In one of their sessions, the focus groups were asked to create collages based on their feelings about coffee, and we're going to share a few of those with you right now today. So as you see here on this first collage, right off the bat, hearts jump out at you. Hearts that are covered in glitter. This person, put a lot of dedication into particularly cutting out small words to talk about coffee, to put the huge word up to the top right corner there of love. She even created words called yumtastic. There's hearts. This person has a love affair with coffee. As you see on this next slide, again, it's a pretty funny looking image. Again, this guy loves coffee. Hearts. The word love is a huge indicator that they're emotionally driven by coffee. On to this next slide. This woman, when she consumes coffee, she feels bold, inspired, intelligent, insightful, creative. Those are all very powerful, very insightful words because coffee greatly impacts her emotional feelings. And finally, we have this. When this guy drinks coffee, he feels like he's on the road to success. He can battle a raging river, and he can even climb burning volcanoes. That's pretty insightful. And so just to further kind of this emotional attachment that consumers and ourselves have with coffee, I have an older, incredibly cheesy US video that'll be a perfect example of how the mass market coffee has been presented in the US for several years. This is similar to, granted not with the same actors and the same brands, but this is similar to commercials that we'll see in many countries globally. So let's take a look and see what this commercial is all about. Can we play this? Come on. We get some sound? Guys, again, incredibly cheesy. Traveling from West Africa, like all that kind of it's incredible. So the bottom line is what is that commercial trying to tell us? What is it trying to tell us? It's trying to equate coffee with love, with family, with home, with happiness, with prosperity. These are all themes that, pull at our heartstrings, right? So when we try to educate our consumers on what they equate to as their love, their family, their home, maybe their burning volcano, it can be off-putting. They don't want us to tell them what they love is wrong and what they don't love is right. During this study, the SCA learned that consumers aren't swayed by altitude or specific processing or specific roast profiles. Precious. However, they are greatly interested in learning about what they like. They are very interested in their own preferences. And this is where opportunity is as the proponents for specialty coffee in Southeast Asia. This is where the consumer has opened the door to let us in, where we can take the opportunity to expose the consumers to what they're interested in and what they love. And with increased exposure leads to increased consumption, and more importantly, leads to increasing their quality expectations. So, it's about exposure, not education. It's about helping the consumer participate in what they love, even though they might not know it yet. So the next time you guys send your coffee back, or a coffee's been sent back because it was sour, that's a good one. I challenge you now to take the opportunity to expose the consumer to our mutual love, which is specialty coffee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I would like to know what type of coffee that burning volcano man was drinking.
I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java